Every single bite you take today is the result of millions of years of evolutionary programming. Your ability to digest milk, process starches, or even crave certain flavors isn't just about personal preference. It's written into your DNA, carved there by the survival struggles of your ancient ancestors. Welcome to Sci Discovery Chronicles, where today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating stories in human evolution: how the foods our ancestors ate literally rewrote our genetic code and created the humans we are today. Imagine standing on an African savanna 60,000 years ago. You're a hunter-gatherer, and your survival depends entirely on what you can find, hunt, or gather. There are no grocery stores, no agriculture, no carefully cultivated crops. Every calorie you consume is a victory against starvation, and every food choice you make could mean the difference between life and death. Now here's where it gets incredible. The foods your ancestors chose didn't just keep them alive. Those dietary decisions fundamentally altered human genetics, creating adaptations that persist in your body right now, at this very moment. Let's start with one of the most well-documented genetic adaptations in human history: lactose tolerance. This is a story that perfectly illustrates how diet can drive evolution in real time. For most of human history, and for most mammals on Earth, the ability to digest milk ended at weaning. Once a child stopped nursing, their body stopped producing lactase, the enzyme needed to break down lactose, the sugar found in milk. This made perfect biological sense because there was simply no evolutionary pressure to maintain this ability into adulthood. Wild animals don't drink milk after infancy, and neither did early humans. But then, something remarkable happened. Around 10,000 years ago, in multiple regions across the globe, humans began domesticating animals. Cattle, goats, sheep, and other livestock became sources not just of meat, but of milk. Suddenly, there was a massive nutritional advantage for any human who could continue digesting milk into adulthood. Milk provided proteins, fats, calories, and crucial nutrients like calcium and vitamin D. In regions where agriculture was difficult or where food sources were unpredictable, being able to drink milk could mean the difference between thriving and starving. Natural selection went into overdrive. Individuals born with a genetic mutation that allowed them to continue producing lactase throughout their lives had a significant survival advantage. They could access a rich, reliable food source that their lactose-intolerant neighbors couldn't fully utilize. These individuals were more likely to survive, reproduce, and pass on their genes. Over hundreds of generations, this mutation spread rapidly through pastoral populations. Today, we see the results of this evolutionary sprint. In northern European populations, where dairy farming became central to survival, up to 95% of adults can digest lactose. In East Asian populations, where dairy farming was less common, that number drops to as low as 5 to 10%. The same species, radically different genetic adaptations, all driven by diet. But lactose tolerance is just the beginning. Let's talk about starch digestion, another fascinating example of evolutionary diet. The human salivary amylase gene, known as AMY1, produces an enzyme that begins breaking down starches right in your mouth. Here's the twist: different human populations have wildly different numbers of copies of this gene. Some individuals have as few as 2 copies, while others have more than 15. Why does this matter? More copies of AMY1 means more amylase enzyme, which means more efficient starch digestion. Research has revealed a striking pattern. Populations with historically high starch diets, like agricultural societies that relied heavily on rice, wheat, or potatoes, tend to have more AMY1 gene copies. Populations that traditionally relied more on hunting, fishing, or animal products tend to have fewer copies. The genetic evidence suggests that as humans transitioned from hunting and gathering to agriculture, those who could more efficiently extract energy from starchy crops had a survival advantage. They could thrive on the new agricultural diet, while others struggled. Over thousands of years, the frequency of higher AMY1 copy numbers increased in these populations. This adaptation has profound implications. It means that your genetic ability to process carbohydrates might be fundamentally different from someone whose ancestors came from a different part of the world. It suggests that our modern dietary recommendations might need to account for these genetic differences. What's optimal nutrition for one population might not be optimal for another, not because of culture or preference, but because of deep genetic adaptations forged over millennia. Now, let's explore an even more dramatic dietary adaptation, the ability to process alcohol. Humans have been consuming fermented foods and beverages for thousands of years, but our ability to metabolize alcohol varies dramatically across populations. The key players here are two enzymes, alcohol dehydrogenase, which breaks down alcohol into acetaldehyde, and aldehyde dehydrogenase, which converts acetaldehyde into harmless acetic acid. Variations in the genes coding for these enzymes can dramatically affect how quickly and efficiently someone processes alcohol. In some East Asian populations, a significant percentage of individuals carry a variant of the aldehyde dehydrogenase gene that produces a less active enzyme. When these individuals consume alcohol, acetaldehyde builds up in their system, causing facial flushing, nausea, and discomfort. This variant might seem disadvantageous, but there's a fascinating evolutionary theory behind its persistence. In regions where rice cultivation created abundant opportunities for fermentation and where alcoholic beverages became common, individuals with this variant gene might have been naturally protected from alcohol abuse. The unpleasant reaction to alcohol could have served as a biological deterrent, potentially offering some protective advantage in societies where alcohol consumption was widespread. But dietary evolution isn't just about what we can digest, it's also about what our bodies crave and how we process nutrients. Consider the genetics of fat metabolism. The APOE gene, which plays a crucial role in cholesterol transport, has several variants that affect cardiovascular health differently. Some variants are associated with increased risk of heart disease, particularly when combined with high-fat diets. Interestingly, the distribution of these variants isn't random across human populations. Some researchers suggest that populations with traditionally low-fat diets might have been under less selective pressure to develop protective variants, while populations with high-fat diets from animal sources might show different patterns. Then there's the fascinating case of the FADS genes, which are involved in processing omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. These genes show remarkable variation across populations, and recent research suggests this variation might be tied to traditional diets. Populations that historically consumed lots of fish, rich in omega-3 fatty acids, might have different FADS gene variants than populations that relied more on plant-based sources of these nutrients. Your genetic ability to convert plant-based omega-3s into the forms your brain needs might depend on whether your ancestors ate fish or flaxseed. Let's not forget about vitamin production and absorption. The ability to produce vitamin D from sunlight varies across populations, with individuals from higher latitudes typically having lighter skin that produces vitamin D more efficiently in low-light conditions. But diet plays a role here too. Populations that traditionally consumed lots of fatty fish, a rich source of dietary vitamin D, might have been under less selective pressure for efficient vitamin D synthesis from sunlight. The interplay between dietary sources and genetic adaptations creates a complex mosaic of human variation. One of the most striking examples of recent dietary evolution comes from the Inuit populations of the Arctic. Living in an environment where plant foods are scarce and traditional diets consist almost entirely of fish and marine mammals, the Inuit developed remarkable genetic adaptations. Recent genomic studies have identified mutations in genes involved in fat metabolism that appear to help Inuit populations process their extremely high-fat diet without the cardiovascular consequences that might affect other populations. These adaptations likely emerged within just a few thousand years, a blink of an eye in evolutionary terms, demonstrating how powerful nutritional pressure can be in driving genetic change. The agricultural revolution, beginning around 10,000 years ago, represents one of the most dramatic dietary shifts in human history. As humans transitioned from hunting and gathering to farming, their diets changed fundamentally. They began consuming more grains, less meat, more domesticated plant varieties, and less dietary diversity overall. This shift created enormous selective pressure. Individuals who could thrive on the new agricultural diet, who could efficiently digest grains and extract nutrients from cultivated plants, had more offspring. Those who couldn't faced malnutrition and reduced reproductive success. We can see the genetic signatures of this transition across the human genome. Beyond lactose tolerance and amylase production, there are adaptations in genes related to vitamin synthesis, immune function, and even brain development. The agricultural revolution didn't just change what humans ate, it changed who humans are at a fundamental genetic level. But here's a crucial point that often gets overlooked in discussions of dietary evolution. These adaptations take time, thousands of years in many cases. The human genome doesn't change overnight. This creates a fascinating problem in our modern world. Over the past century, and especially in the past few decades, the human diet has changed more rapidly than at any previous point in history. Processed foods, refined sugars, industrial seed oils, and countless novel ingredients now dominate modern diets. Our genes, however, are still adapted to the foods our ancestors ate thousands of years ago. This mismatch between our ancient genes and our modern diet might help explain the epidemic of metabolic diseases plaguing industrialized societies. Type 2 diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, and other chronic conditions are often called diseases of civilization because they're far more common in societies that have adopted modern processed diets. Our bodies, genetically programmed to extract every possible calorie from food to survive periods of scarcity, now face constant abundance of energy-dense, nutrient-poor foods. The result is metabolic chaos. Understanding the genetic basis of dietary adaptation opens up exciting possibilities for personalized nutrition. Imagine a future where your genetic profile informs your dietary recommendations. If you carry multiple copies of the AMY1 gene, perhaps you handle carbohydrates well. If you have certain APOE variants, maybe you need to be more careful with saturated fats. If you lack the genes for efficient lactose digestion, dairy might not be your friend. This isn't science fiction. Genetic testing for dietary recommendations is already emerging, though we're still in the early stages of understanding how to use this information effectively. But we must be careful not to oversimplify. Genes aren't destiny. They interact with environment, behavior, and countless other factors. Just because your ancestors thrived on a particular diet doesn't mean it's automatically optimal for you. Epigenetics, the study of how genes are expressed rather than just which genes you have, adds another layer of complexity. Your grandmother's diet might influence how your genes are expressed, creating effects that span generations. The story of dietary evolution also raises profound questions about human diversity and unity. On one hand, these genetic adaptations highlight real biological differences between populations. Northern Europeans and East Asians aren't just culturally different, they're genetically adapted to different dietary patterns. This isn't about superiority or inferiority, it's about adaptation to different environments and food sources. On the other hand, these differences are superficial compared to our overwhelming genetic similarity. All humans share the vast majority of their DNA, and the dietary adaptations we've discussed represent tiny variations on a common theme. As we look to the future, understanding dietary evolution becomes even more critical. Climate change is altering food availability across the globe. Biotechnology is creating novel foods that humans have never encountered before. Space exploration might require humans to survive on completely artificial diets.
How will our genes respond to these challenges? Will we see new adaptations emerge, or will technology allow us to bypass genetic limitations entirely? The relationship between diet and genes is bidirectional. Not only do genes influence how we process food, but food influences which genes get passed on. Every meal you eat is part of an ongoing conversation between your body and your environment, a dialogue that has been happening since the first humans walked the earth. The foods your ancestors chose shaped your genome, and the foods you choose today might influence the genetic future of humanity. This brings us to an important realization. We are not separate from nature or from our evolutionary past. We are living, breathing products of millions of years of adaptation, carrying within ourselves the story of every meal our ancestors ever ate. That ability to taste sweetness, it evolved to help our ancestors identify ripe, energy-rich fruits. That craving for salty foods, it developed because salt was scarce, but essential for survival. Even your pickiness about certain vegetables might have evolutionary roots in avoiding potentially toxic plants. Understanding this deep connection between food and genetics transforms how we think about nutrition. It's not just about calories or macronutrients. It's about recognizing that we're still fundamentally Stone Age humans trying to navigate a modern food environment. Our genes were shaped by scarcity, by seasonal variation, by the need to store every possible calorie against future famine. Those adaptations served us brilliantly for hundreds of thousands of years, but they can work against us in a world of constant food abundance. So what does all this mean for you right now in your daily life? It means that your relationship with food is more complex and more fascinating than you might have imagined. It means that there might not be one perfect diet for all humans because we're not all genetically identical. It means that understanding your ancestry and your genetic heritage might actually help you make better food choices. And it means that every time you sit down to eat, you're participating in an evolutionary process that spans millions of years and will continue long after you're gone. The story of how ancient diets shaped our genes is ultimately a story of adaptation, survival, and the incredible flexibility of life. It's a reminder that we're not fixed, unchanging beings, but dynamic products of our environment, constantly shaped by the world around us. It's a testament to the power of natural selection and the profound ways that even simple choices, like what to eat for dinner, can echo through generations. As we continue to unravel the genetic basis of dietary adaptation, we're not just learning about the past, we're gaining tools to understand the present and shape the future. We're discovering why some people thrive on diets that make others sick. We're learning how to prevent diseases by aligning our modern choices with our ancient genetics. We're opening doors to personalized medicine and nutrition that could revolutionize healthcare. In conclusion, the evolutionary advantage isn't just about having the right genes. It's about understanding the story those genes tell, the journey they've been on, and the wisdom they carry from countless generations of human survival. Your DNA is a library containing the collected knowledge of your ancestors, their solutions to the challenge of staying alive and passing on their genes. By learning to read that library, by understanding how ancient diets shaped your genes, you gain insight not just into human history, but into your own body and its needs. The foods your ancestors ate millions of years ago still influence what you should eat today. The genetic adaptations that allowed humans to survive ice ages, migrations, and the agricultural revolution are still active in your cells right now. You are a walking, talking testament of the power of dietary evolution, carrying within you the solutions to nutritional challenges faced by generations long gone. And that, when you really think about it, is absolutely extraordinary. So the next time you're deciding what to eat, remember, you're not just feeding yourself, you're honoring millions of years of evolutionary history. You're engaging with genetic adaptations forged in the crucible of survival. You're participating in the ongoing story of human evolution, a story that began in the African savanna and continues today in your kitchen. That's the real evolutionary advantage, not just having adapted genes, but understanding them and using that knowledge to live healthier, more informed lives. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time, genetics, and the fascinating intersection of food and evolution. If you found this exploration as mind-blowing as we did, make sure to subscribe to Sci Discovery Chronicles, hit that like button, and share this video with anyone who's ever wondered why they can't digest milk or why they crave certain foods. Until next time, keep discovering, keep questioning, and keep exploring the incredible science that makes us human.